Well, this is Michael Wojcik with the Rochester City Council update for May 2nd, 2015. I'm going to have to skip the stories and be pretty quick with this one because I got a lot of stuff to cover. First and foremost, in the Committee of the Whole meeting, we had a couple department updates from Fire and from HR. One thing to note there is Fire Department's talking about the need to get some land for their Fire Department number 6 and number 7. Or maybe we could reevaluate how we're handling sprawl in the community before we tax ourselves out of existence. Um, we had a little bit of a revisiting of inclusionary zoning. Pretty clear that some county staff had a talking to, and now they were not nearly as supportive as of it as before. So I apologize to any staffers that I got in trouble. You did the right thing. We still know it's the right thing to do for the community. Councilmember Campy incorrectly pointed out that inclusionary zoning is probably the one most effective universal tool for addressing affordable housing. We can do it or we cannot do it, but we got to make a decision and we got to proceed. We had a very long dinner meeting agenda, which is kind of funny because it's not really supposed to have an agenda, but among the things that we discussed is Uber. We'll be working with Uber's attorney to talk about doing things here. Principally, I'd like to at least give give residents of Rochester the option. I think the council overwhelmingly sees that, but I want to make sure that we have the same kind of background check authorization that we do for cab drivers as well, because public safety is pretty important too. Update on the RCL lawsuit. The pittance of the lawsuit that remains that hasn't already been thrown out is going forward here shortly. Look forward to wrapping that thing up, hopefully before we do our next transit contract. Bottom line, all the crazy claims that you heard before, like I had slandered the owner or the city stole the transit system from them. Those laughable claims have already been thrown out and are no longer being considered. There's just a question about the process where we picked, and that's the one thing that's remaining. The heritage preservation ordinance apparently will be coming forward to a committee meeting after God knows how much delay. We had a little discussion as to whether we were going to entertain the people who applied for the armory contract or whether we were going to just try and sell the building off. I mean, my God, that we had some really awesome proposals, so I think we need to hear them out and see if we can find a way to make them sustainable in the short run. I think it'd be a fabulous way to reinvigorate the arts in downtown Rochester. In the open comment of the meeting, we had a bunch of comments. Before the meeting, there was a little bit of a rally for people looking for more diversity and inclusivity in our boards and commissions, and I hope the council and mayor were paying attention to that, because it's not just me raising these claims anymore. I mean, the council and the mayor did a really good job of ignoring me for years on this and really making some condescending comments about how good the process was and how there weren't any problems. At least I think we've moved beyond that now. One thing in open comment, Tom DeBoer brought up a request for an ordinance that would basically put severe restrictions on all pit bull type dogs. Not something that I support. I do support taking action against potentially dangerous dogs that show aggression. And fortunately for me, the state law is pretty crystal clear about that you can't do breed-specific legislation. You can do breed and temperament legislation, but that means that you can't just blanket anyone who has some sort of a pit bull or related breed. You can't just pigeonhole them into a certain set of regulations. They have to have some temperament issues as well, which is fair to the owners. I voted against the setting up the precincts for the primary this year. I have no idea if I'll have a primary. It looks like I will have a race, but the north part of Country Club Manor, the voting place for that, and the north part of the Country Club Manor is probably the poorest of all the precincts that I represent. And the key thing is there, we make people, there's no transit access between the neighborhood and where the voting place is, and there's no safe bike or pedestrian route to get from the neighborhood to the polling place. The neighborhood's on the south side of 14, the polling place is on the north side. I've seen people crossing the highway where it's 65 miles per hour there. It scares me, and I've also known that people just haven't gone and voted because it's too difficult for them to get out there, particularly in an area where a lot of people don't drive. I instead said stick it at Harriet Bishop and we'll deal with the congestion. At least people are going to be safe getting there, and it's very close to their neighborhood. I was shot down 6-1. We had an automobile-oriented sign that's being proposed in the First Avenue area. I also did not support that. A few other council members did not support it, but they were willing to go along with it since once we have some design standards in place, because it's a revocable permit, we can just make them remove the existing signs and be happy to do that. I think that all of the urban design standards, the Rochester Downtown Master Plan, the DMC plan, the people who are doing the guidelines from with us from the University of Minnesota, they're all opposed to this, as was staff initially, until apparently somebody got a talking to and flipped on it. But it's not an appropriate sign for a pedestrian-oriented location, and look forward to cleaning that language up shortly. The Ronald McDonald House Phase 2 expansion came through. Beautiful project, wonderful people, great mission. Love what they do in the city. Don't love the architecture of the first one so much. They put a lot of automobile uses right between the building and the curb. This one completely fixed that. They have a beautiful building with the that embraces the street. It's built up to the street. All the ugly stuff is hidden behind it. Good architecture. Came in with the support of the Southwest neighborhood, the Falwell neighborhood, the Kutsky neighborhood, Imagine Kutsky. Everybody really respected what they did. This basically went through the same process as the Holiday Inn. So if you believe that there's neighborhoods out there that are just trying to sabotage everything, not the case. And this one also was not looking for any public assistance. This is entirely a private project. A lot of discussion on the recreation center. We're putting an additional $2.2 million into that to do some energy saving stuff. This is a good $2.2 million, and we knew it was coming, but these are things that are going to improve the energy efficiency, and over the next 15 years more than pay off that initial amount. So that's a good thing. Bad thing is, through all of their connections, basically the hockey folks pushed real hard to get some additional entrances open over the objections of our professional engineers who were trying to improve safety in the area. And it was about to be shot down. I think everybody was opposed to it except for the two guys with close hockey ties. And but then we ended up tabling it to see if staff could come up with some other options. Key thing here is if we do other options that involve a median, it's going to be a lot more money for a project that's already blown the bank, for a project that doesn't have any money left in reserves. It's just I don't think this is going to be more important than all the other things we do as a city, so I'm not going to likely support throwing more money at this. The whole reason this came before us is absolutely ridiculous. I asked the city administrator if he's ever seen anything like this in the 8 years I've been on the council. I said, no, this is the first time ever. And what it is we had our professional engineers who made a recommendation, based on both engineering standards and public safety, and they stated very clearly that the changes they were making improved pedestrian, bicyclist, and automobile safety, all of them, on that site, which is critically important where you have kids and seniors. We directed the city administrator to initiate a variance at our cost and write findings that overruled the city engineer on the city engineering matters. If that sounds ridiculous to you, that's because it is ridiculous. And it should have never happened, but this is, we had some pretty well-connected people pushing this, and unfortunately it took up a lot of time and public resources, and ultimately that bad design that they were advocating for isn't going to happen. Maybe there'll be another design, but I just can't see myself throwing a lot of public resources at this. Lastly, the one that everyone is probably the most interested in is the diversity and inclusivity resolution that I brought forward. And I say I very loosely because I had very little to do with it. Some of the amazing people that took the time to set up a panel, kind of a roundtable issues forum on this, where 80 or so people showed up, and then they also organized a rally. I felt like we had to do something, so I reached out to some of the organizers and said, hey, can you give me a draft resolution that we can begin to address this? And they did a real nice job of putting it together. I know, I took a bunch of hits for bringing this forward. Fair enough, I knew that was coming, and what I'd say is that I've been talking about this issue for several years, and people can criticize me for how I brought this forward and how I raised the issue and how I got public attention on it. But we actually did something. I mean, we put the ordinance on the table for discussion. We'd agree we'd talk about it more. So we moved it to the table, and we're going to continue to discuss it and get some recommendations for staff, because we know we have a serious problem. Most of us know that we have a serious problem. Not all of us. I was criticized by the mayor for being unprofessional. Fair enough, but this isn't about the mayor. This is about the data. This is about the fact that our boards and commissions are overwhelmingly wealthy, older, white males. We do not have the representation from women. We do not have the representation from young people, people of less means, from other races. And when you actually break the data out more, you look at a few boards that were great staff members, like the library, civic theater, and police oversight, went out of their way to be very diverse. It kind of skews how bad some of the other boards really are in terms of diversity. So we've been talking about this for 3 years and got nothing done. Got something done today, so people can criticize my means all they want, but hey, we're at least taking up the issue now. And so the mayor was hurt by this, and what I would say is that there were a lot of people who were hurt by the way that the process of the heart of the city went down too. I mean, when we took a registered lobbyist paid by some of the same folks who are competing for public funds from the group that he's sitting on, and put him in place while significantly underrepresenting women despite the number of outstanding qualifications that came, a lot of people are going to be pretty upset with that, and rightfully so. It's pretty absurd, and I do hope that the Ethical Practices Board answers my questions in a way that we can move forward and avoid some of these conflicts of interest in the future. I certainly would not feel welcome awarding the Heart of the City contract to one of the firms who are paying the lobbyist who's sitting on that Heart of the City committee. I hope the public understands why I would be particularly concerned about that. So Councilmember Bilderback correctly took me on for not involving the mayor in it. The only person I really involved was Councilmember Campion, because he was talking with some of the same people that I spoke with. I didn't involve the mayor, but we did set up the resolution that he still maintained his authority to address some of this. The mayor is steadfastly opposed to having a task force to look at these issues. I hope the council sees otherwise. The council member Means was hurt because I didn't involve her, and obviously she's very different, unique from both a gender and racial standpoint from us, and she should be part of the discussion. And again, if I had been working on this resolution myself, I think she would probably been one of the first persons that I went to discuss it. But in this case, again, it came from some outside bodies, and it was kind of done in a hurry to respond to the rally that went on, because we wanted to have something and let people know that I wanted to let people know that we were listening. The one person who was truly hostile towards it was Councilmember Hickey, who's been, you can go back and read some of his, or hear his comments that he made at previous meetings on this, but this was the first time tonight that he actually acknowledged that we might have a little bit of a problem. So there's some progress there. Bottom line is, it comes back to the city council. I also talked about a few positive things in terms of there's a number of groups like Ready to Lead, with the libraries working with the Diversity Council, making sure that we line up people in underrepresented communities to serve on boards and commissions. Now, that's half the problem, but we found out with the Heart of the City, even if you get those people into the mix, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be appointed. But that's some really good work. I know they're talking with the mayor too, and I'm sorry the mayor feels hurt. I'm sorry other council members feel excluded, but enough of looking at the data and pretending there's not an issue there. So while you may not like the approach I took, it was bad positive reinforcement, because you know what? Nothing else I did ever worked, and this worked. So if you want me to not go down these routes in the future, maybe listen to the things that we're having to say, because it turns out there were a lot of members of the public that cared greatly about this too. And just to let you know how insane things are in the city of Rochester, I had a message posted on Facebook from somebody who's listed on the board of directors page for the Rochester Area Builders, who told me that I assume seriously that by pointing out the paid lobbyist ties to the Rochester Area Builders Association, because they were the only ones that were paying them, I was opening myself up to a libel or slander lawsuit. Okay. Well, you guys just go crazy with that. The bottom line is, I'm looking out for public integrity. I hope the Ethical Practices Board views it in the same way, so we can take some action and address this one particular infraction. But more importantly, I hope we're not having the same conversation a year from now with no action. Women are 50% of our community. They should be 50% of our boards and commissions. Not that hard, especially when we get the number of amazingly qualified candidates who are just getting blown off. So I really appreciate you listening to this. I know it was fast. I always welcome your questions. I appreciate your support. I'm obviously running for re-election this year. Sounds like I'm going to have a candidate. I think he's finally officially moved from where he was living in Rochester to my ward so that he can run against me. So kudos to him on that. Thanks. I'll catch you next time.